Every night when we got a new batch of volunteers, there were volunteer veterinarians and veterinary technicians every night, 12 of them. And each night it was a new batch. They mostly were coordinated through the Long Island Veterinary Medical Association. So every night when I sat them down and did their orientation, I talked about emotional stress that they may feel within themselves, emotional stress that they may perceive in the handlers of the search and rescue dogs, and even emotional stress in the dogs themselves. So I talked about all three of those areas of stress. I told the volunteers, talk to each other, don't be afraid to go to counseling. Post-traumatic stress syndrome happens to responders. It's not just to the people that were there during the disaster. So secondary post-traumatic stress, very real syndrome, and it's very real within responders. And so we would listen to the handlers, and then we would carefully, without crowding them, because they've been in a crowded, tight situation doing their work down at the pile. So I said, don't crowd them. Let's have 3 volunteers at a time, taking care of the dog and talking to the handler, and let's go slowly and use a method where we're not overwhelming anyone. Usually an urban search and rescue dog is looking for like one lost person, perhaps, or several people that are in a building that collapsed, but not a building that big and not a building with that many people. And so the sensory overload was something that the handlers were saying that they felt like the dogs were experiencing. We had some other handlers that told us that their dogs were feeling some stress of the handlers, because some of the things that the dogs were finding were pretty horrific. So if your dog goes, like into a tunnel or something and comes back with a body part, sometimes the handlers, instead of saying good boy or whatever, if verbal praise is the praise for the dog, they would recoil for a second because of what they were seeing and then praise the dog. But the dog doesn't understand the emotion of it. They just know, for some reason, the praise the timing wasn't right on the praise. And so that was something that the handlers were expressing to us, that was then confusing the dog. Like, why wasn't I rewarded immediately for finding this thing?